Hi, I'm Andrew, and this is a quick guide on how to So personal statement is that opportunity really for you to explore all the possibilities and tell me what's really unique about yourself. In a really harsh terms, when your application comes into university, all you are 3 pieces of paper, which are your details about what courses you're applying for, who you are, where you've studied, what your qualifications are, your personal statement and a reference from your teacher. And most courses don't interview, so realistically that personal statement is all I'm going to get to know why you are so unique and why we should be taking you on. The basic bits of it are you only have 4,000 characters or 47 lines, whichever comes first, which is pretty much a page of A4 paper, about 600 words. So it's not a lot to say why you are so fantastic. So really planning nice and early is a great opportunity to think about what am I going to actually say, what's going to make me stand out and unique, and why the university should be fighting for me rather than I'm fighting for them. So one of the things we're looking for is what makes you unique. If you think about your school and college, you all come from similar backgrounds, you're all studying similar qualifications, applying maybe for similar courses. So what would make you stand out just from your colleagues that you actually study with? And then if you think about that from a national point of view, you're competing against a lot of students. So why do you want to actually apply for that course? What subjects are of interest? And what have you done that connects to that? If you don't know what you want to do and you're not too sure which option to take yet, then what are your transferable skills and how are they going to make you stand out? So a really key way of structuring your personal statement is approaching it like any other essay. You really want to have a short introduction to say, this is me, I'm fantastic, carry on reading. Then you'd have a couple of different sections about who you are. So thinking of stuff like, why have you applied for that course? If you don't know why you've applied for a course, thinking, well, why do you want to go to university, and answering those 2 questions. After that, be thinking about, well, what do you do that makes you stand out? Any extracurricular activities, if you've studied the EPQ, and how do you make that relevant? So positions of responsibility and big things like, I've done babysitting, makes you really responsible, so include stuff like that into it. And then finally, a nice little short conclusion that doesn't tell me anything new, that's got pretty much a highlight of what you previously read. So you can go, I am fantastic, here's the meat and bones of it, and then really concluding it and be backing yourself up. So if you claim to do something, put the activity, what's been the benefit and how does that relate to the course or applying to university. So if you are going to a course that interviews, when they have that personal statement in front of you, you know that you can back up your own claims when you go into further conversations about it. So one really good tip is thinking about what would you actually say to somebody in an interview and what would you say your highlights are. So actually by writing in advance, what would you say are 3 real positives about yourself? And that could be that you're proud that you completed work experience, that you're doing the Duke of Edinburgh. It could be just more, think more personal, that I've actually really struggled with school because I was off with illness and I actually completed my GCSEs, which is a real achievement to me. So it doesn't have to be something really big, it can be something that's quite unique to yourself, but by writing that down in advance, you can then start thinking, well, how does that slot into where I want to be? The other great thing is having a really good structure in advance, and that structure can change once you've started writing it, but by knowing I'm going to start talking about this first, that's going to link into this bit, and then that's going to link into that bit. It means when you're starting to write it, it's a little bit easier. When you have wrote it, be thinking about how does the last line of the paragraph link into the first line of the next paragraph so it reads really well. Another tip is how to avoid cliches. So there's only so many ways that you can say, I am brilliant because, and UCAS will always be able to say, well, this much, we've seen this many times. So certain things like if you're a midwifery student, how many times people will say, I have always, from the minute I was born, wanted to be a midwife. And if you take that quite literally, you are going, oh, I've just been born. That looks like a fun job to do. So how do you actually say, I really want to do this because? Look at different websites as well. So there's loads of good websites online that can give you some help and support. So UCAS itself, different universities that you're applying to, the student room, University Rich, and some of them will have personal statement archives. So if you're applying for a more unique course, you could actually go and look at how other students have written their personal statements in the past. Use them as a starting point, but obviously just make sure you don't copy it, because UCAS will inform us if they think it's been plagiarised. Sometimes writing a personal statement, just like writing an essay, can be really difficult because you've got a really good plan, but you just don't know how to start it. When I was a student, the way I got around that was not starting with the introductory paragraph, but was starting what was effectively paragraph 2. So I could see in a personal statement, I knew I wanted to talk about why I wanted to apply for my degree, which was drama and English. So I discussed what was my interest about that course. I then went on to talk about my extracurricular activities, being involved in school theatre shows, being involved in other activities and how that related to it, and wrote my conclusion, and then reread what I wrote and said, right, that is what I'm saying about myself, and went back to my introduction. Sometimes those first few lines of an introduction is the hardest thing because you don't know what you're actually going to end up saying. So writing the rest of it first and then coming back so your introduction summarises everything that you've discussed is a good little cheat to kind of get around it and then go, yes, I'm confident in what I'm saying there now. Other key things to be thinking about when you're writing your personal statement is make sure that you are concise and making sure that we know exactly what you think. I was an English student, and English students loved putting quotes in. For example, Shakespeare said, "All the world's a stage and my stage is," or look at other famous quotes from history such as, "I have a dream and my dream is going to be." At the end of the day, these people have been dead for a good couple of hundred years, and I want to know about what you think, not what somebody else has thought. So make sure that it's relevant to what you're saying, because a quote from Shakespeare is a really nice quote and shows that you've maybe done a bit of reading, but it takes a good couple of sentences away from what you could be saying about why you are fantastic. And think about who is reading that personal statement. You could be sending your application off to 5 different universities. So if that's the case, how do you talk to them? Somebody who from a local university who might have a similar sense of humour might find something amusing, but a university at the other end of the country could think what you've said is offensive. So make sure that it's just clear and to the facts about what you're saying. Equally, if there is a university that you really want to apply to, think about how they use their language. So you should never say, I really want to go to this university, or I really love this city, because you could alienate yourself from your other options. But by looking at the website and saying, this is how they talk about themselves, and drip feeding some of that language into your personal statement, when your favoured university reads it, they'll go, God, this person really gets us, we should take them on. Whereas the next university just goes, that's a really good personal statement, we should take them on. So you can secretly talk to one university whilst not alienating your other options. Over my time reading personal statements, one of the first personal statements that will always stick with me was literally read, please take me on. Please was spelt PLZ, but at least they did use an exclamation mark to signify that they wanted me to take them on. As you can imagine, this went round our office and we all had a look at it. And it was very amusing, it was very clever because it stood out from the rest of the applications, but because they didn't go into any detail about what they were interested in, why they wanted to go to university, how we could help them get to where they needed to be, we couldn't make them an offer. So really make sure, even if you think this is going to make me stand out, that it still ticks all the boxes that you need to make sure that we know how fantastic you are. Proofreading is a really key thing to do, and the more people that read it, the stronger your personal statement would be. And that can be friends and family. Your friends should be able to go, God, I didn't realise you were that amazing, where have you been keeping all that from? Your parents or guardians will be really key because they will think of things that you will never think of. When I was writing my personal statement a long time ago now, I had my head of year, my head of sixth form, my form tutor all look over it. They all said it was great. My mum looked over it and she said it was great. And then my dad, who hired people as part of his job, looked over it and got a red pen out. And you can imagine the disappointment when it was completely ripped to shreds. Spelling mistakes, grammar mistakes, things should be moved into different priorities. And at the time, he was the worst parent ever because he'd criticised that personal statement. Leaving it a day or so, I actually looked back over it and started reading what he wrote and was like, that doesn't make sense. That is actually spelt wrong, and that would be better structured. So having somebody else proofread it just means it's going to be a better thing, and it's hard to accept that criticism at times, but knowing that you'd rather somebody close to you give you some constructive criticism than an admissions tutor read it and go, if they can't write that well, how will they write their essays?